Hello and welcome to Exposing Oz.
President Obama continues to promise the American people that if they like the health insurance they have today, they can keep it.
Here's a guarantee that I've made. If you have insurance that you like, then you will be able to keep that insurance. If you've got a doctor that you like, you will be able to keep your doctor. Nobody is trying to change what works in the system. We are trying to change what doesn't work in the system.
Unfortunately, the proposals moving through the House and Senate today make it nearly impossible for the president to keep that promise. The vast majority of Americans get their health insurance through the place of work. The Lewin Group estimates that over 88 million Americans could lose their current employer-based coverage under the House bill. Even other estimates, far lower than the Lewin Group's, still point out that millions of Americans could lose their health insurance. To see more videos like this, please visit fixhealthcarepolicy.com. President Obama continues to promise the American people that if they like the health insurance they have today, they can keep it.
Here's a guarantee that I've made.
Find their way through the system. There are 4 main ways nearly all of us will experience health care once the health reform law goes fully into effect. About half of us will get insurance through our jobs, just like today. About a third will get covered by the government through Medicare and Medicaid. About 1 in 10 will buy insurance themselves. And unfortunately, another 30 million of us or so, just under 1 in 10, still may not have coverage at all. But let's begin in the workplace. Many Americans are already covered by their employers, and for them, not a whole lot will change. There will be some new advantages, though, like caps on how much you have to pay out of pocket, and free preventative care. The bigger changes are coming for those who work for larger companies but aren't covered now. That's because the government is going to require companies with 50 or more employees to cover full-time workers or pay a penalty. So, more workers may find themselves covered. Smaller employers won't face the same penalties for refusing to buy insurance, but they'll be encouraged to do so. The government will be setting up special marketplaces to make it easier for small employers to take the plunge. Some will be offered temporary tax breaks if they do, and unlike now, insurers can't inflate prices if some employees are sick. So, many of us will be getting covered at work. A lot of us will be covered with help from the government, just like today. Not much will change for seniors on Medicare. The law has already started helping with prescription drugs and better preventative care, and that will continue. Medicaid, on the other hand, is expanding to cover more of us, especially poor adults, many of whom aren't eligible today. If your income is low, Medicaid will cover you, most likely in a private insurance plan. But there's a catch. The Supreme Court ruled that governors and legislatures of each state should decide whether or not to be part of expanding Medicaid. In states that get on board, the feds will cover almost all the cost. But for those who don't, you may be left with the same options you have today if you're poor. So you'll want to check out your state's decision if you think you might qualify for Medicaid. Even with employer coverage and the expansion of Medicaid, a lot of us will still be left out. For those not covered or who find their work coverage too expensive, a new way to buy insurance on our own will be popping up everywhere. They're called health insurance marketplaces, though they may have a fancier name than that in your state. The health insurance marketplace is like a virtual insurance mega mall. Here you'll find private insurers competing for your business, and you'll be able to pick out how much coverage you want and how much you want to pay for it. From cheaper, high-deductible bronze plans to more expensive platinum plans. Still, all plans will cover a comprehensive set of services like hospital and doctor visits, maternity care, mental health care, and drugs. Most everything any of us need, at least when it comes to medical care. As with Medicaid, not all governors are on board to set up these marketplaces, but the feds will open their own in those states, and so you probably won't notice much of a difference. One big advantage of buying insurance through these new marketplaces is that the federal government will provide most people with a tax credit to make insurance more affordable if you don't have any other options and your income is below a certain level. In fact, most people buying on their own will be eligible for a tax credit and won't have to pay the whole premium themselves. And the marketplaces will make sure that insurance companies operate fairly under strict rules. They'll have to offer everyone insurance, even if they're sick. And they won't be able to charge more for pre-existing conditions. Unlike today, men and women will pay the same price. And prices for older people will come down, while young people will pay more. To keep costs down for young people, though, they'll be able to stay on their parents' plans until 26 and buy low-budget catastrophic plans until they're 30. Of course, all these changes still don't mean insurance will come cheap. Most people buying their own coverage will end up paying less with the new health insurance tax credits. But some people will have to pay more, even though many of them will be getting better and more secure insurance. So let's be realistic. Not everyone's going to run out and buy insurance. Some might say, hold on a minute. If I can't be turned down or charged more, why not just wait until I get sick or injured to buy insurance at all? Well, first, you can only get coverage during special enrollment periods, so if you snooze, you may lose. And second, thanks to something called the individual mandate, if you're not insured, you pay a fine, making this option seem not nearly so clever. Still, if you really can't afford to buy in and can't get insurance anywhere else, the government will waive the penalty, so don't panic. By now, you've probably noticed a lot more people will be getting a lot more coverage. Where will the money to pay for that come from? Taxes. Many of them targeted at the health industry itself, even tanning services. Yes, individuals will pay too, mostly the wealthiest Americans, who will be paying more into Medicare. Also, hospitals and insurance companies participating in Medicare will get paid somewhat less. Not painless, but somebody's got to pay. So, as Americans prepare for 2014, how will you be covered? How would you like to be? Now's the time to figure it out and get on the path to setting yourself up for the best insurance at the best price. After all, who wouldn't want that?
Here's the story of a group named Acorn, as dishonest and corrupt as they can be. But Acorn helped Obama get elected, so they'll get off scot-free. It's a story of Acorn law breaking, stealing votes and crushing all their foes, helping deadbeats get your tax dollars, arranging loans for hoes. But Acorn will still be helping fix the census, getting prostitutes free cash and a free lunch, and Obama's in their hip pocket. That is how Acorn became the Shady Bunch, the Shady Bunch, the Shady Bunch. That's the way Acorn became the Shady Bunch.
My father was a foreign student, born and raised in a small village in Kenya. He grew up herding goats.
Frank Marshall Davis, writer. I have a collection of intimate portraits called horizontal cameos.
The free market, it doesn't work. It has never worked.
40 years ago, when I was 8 years old,
The American people will embrace the change.
For a lot of kids, the doors that have been open to me aren't open to them.
Obama needs us, Acorn. But we need Obama, don't we?
The Abraham Lincoln School. This is a progressive school.
There are kids who still believe in the American dream. They think it exists.
We are 5 days away from fundamentally transforming the United States of America. In the last few decades, the average income of the top 1%,
take it then from the careless fists of the money drunk,
the breathtaking greed of a few,
place it in the reaching hands of the little people.
On March 23, 2010, President Barack Hussein Obama signed into law the Affordable Care Act, commonly known as Obamacare.
Is this your first prostate exam, Mr. Johnson?
Yes, but that's not the problem.
So what's the problem?
It's not very private.
That's why they call it public health care, Johnson.
Morning, Mr. Johnson. Nothing to worry about. You're my 93rd patient today.
Hey, buddy, hurry up. Mira's running.
Assume the position. Now, this might hurt just a little bit, but thanks to our president, we now have Obamacare.
How long have you been in this office?
I've been in this office 12 years. I was the first doctor to come into this building. The frustrating part of my day is I have 2 employees that work nearly full-time fighting Medicare and other insurance carriers for work that I have done. I absolutely detest that part of my life. I never imagined that I would do work and then have to fight a third party to get paid for the work that I do. So that part is particularly miserable. We're also being portrayed very poorly by the media, or we have been in the past. And now we have to fight the government. I mean, I never imagined that I would have to become politically active to take good care of my patients. And so that's added a whole nother element to the life of being a doctor. I took Medicaid until about 4 years ago. Medicaid paid none of their bills in my office for 18 months. And every single registered letter that we sent them came back saying that they had had problems with their computer, and that was why they could not pay my bills. So at the 18th month, I gave up and said, we can't do this anymore. Their reimbursement, as I mentioned earlier, is so low that I would have to see nearly 20 patients an hour to make any kind of reasonable reimbursement on it. In our community, with decreasing reimbursement, many of the primary care physicians have gotten off of Medicare. I don't actually know anyone who is taking Medicaid. Medicaid in Georgia reimburses about $30 for an office visit, and my overhead costs about $350 an hour before I take a penny out the door. So we would be looking at trying to see 20 patients an hour if we took Medicaid. So because so many physicians are getting off of these insurances, it's very hard to find places to send the patients. So a lot of our Medicare patients are having to go to the emergency room. I feel a great deal of anger. And when I look outside of myself and I look at the rest of the country, if a person